Now is the time. A time you'll look back on. A time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time. This moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome. Take over. The time is now.
Not long to go. Wembley, here we come. Do. All right, lads. How's it going?
All right, mate, you?
Not too bad. Great show last night, Richie.
Thank you very much, mate. See, you weren't there. It was weird not having it on the screen.
Yeah, it was. I was
you left the imbeciles to run the asylum last night.
Nah, you're well able to manage it. You know what to do. I was going to do, Pete.
All good. Yeah, just a nice week off. So spend time with the family, keeping busy. Yeah, can't complain. All nice, calm before the storm, ready for Sunday.
Nice. Well, we said we'd surprise people today and throw a show in. We needed to make sure everything checked out, and Sean was going to be available before we put it out. But yeah, it all checked out, and Sean was ready and waiting for us, waiting on us this time, not the other way around. But look at this man. I'm not going to say anything about Cowboys. He's asked me not to. So I'll introduce him by saying this man has been talking tickets all week. So he has so many tickets that he said probably has 2 to give away tonight. You wouldn't know. But let's get him on. It's Sean.
Come on,
right, Sean. All good.
Let's kick it off. So, where are we starting with
it? No pressure. Yeah, you know how we have a detailed agenda in place for all our shows. But where would you like to start, Sean?
I don't mind. I suppose we kick it off with the final, really, and what do you see from it? What do I see from it? You know, for me, I don't know. I'm not remotely nervous about it because I think it's well within our remit to beat Man United. You know, I've watched them a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, and I don't see the fuss of them, you know, being honest with you, in the sense of we're playing well and we're not scoring. You know, I feel like we're holding back a little bit. There's a couple of players kind of probably not going full tilt with the final in mind and stuff like that, like, you know. But I watch United play, and they're a strange setup, like, you know, and it's something that Ten Hag done as well at Ajax. He presses out wide to the centre backs, so his wingers actually press the centre backs, which makes their pitch. They're very narrowed in, like, which could give our full backs and our wingers. That will allow us to isolate their full backs. You know, they get caught out man v man defensively an awful lot. Leicester were probably 3v3, I'd say, on about 4 or 5 occasions in the first half at the weekend. You know, if we get that opportunity, you know, I can see it's either going to be St. Maximin or it's going to be Almiron. One of the two of them is going to have the game of their lives, because they're going to get so much space. If you look at Tete at the weekend, there was so many times he was free, and he has absolutely nobody marking him. What happens when they press like that so hard, we actually end up fullback versus fullback. You know, in an attacking situation, we have them massively overloaded because it's their front 3 press the centre backs. So they have 3 players pressing 2 centre backs. The kicker for us is we have 2 very good footballing centre backs that will beat that press. You know, and then on if they can get Trippier freed in as well, you know, I can see where Manchester United are going to be overly dominant against us. They're reliant on Rashford, whose form is absolutely astronomical at the moment. You know, that doesn't last forever either. So you have 2 teams going into a final. One team that is playing well, not taking their chances. Another team that's playing from my eyes, I think they're playing average and they're unbelievably clinical. So for me going into it, I think we're going to win it. And I'm not saying it because I'm a Newcastle fan, because I support the club, but I try to watch football as a neutral now. Maybe it's because I'm getting old and stuff like that, and I'm not as emotionally invested in it, week in, week out. But I look at both teams as a neutral, and I kind of think to myself, we have the beatings of them. I don't see Casemiro coming back in is obviously a big boost for them, but they carry so many passengers.
Yeah.
Out of possession. Even Rashford out of possession is a passenger. Fernandes out of possession is a passenger. Anthony, if they start him, Weghorst is a passenger. Their full backs are very static. Newcastle, if Newcastle go there and if there's no nerves and they're up and at it, I don't see how they're going to stop us. And I'm not saying that as a Newcastle fan. I'm saying it as just looking at both teams playing over the past couple of months. Form in the final is irrelevant. The one thing that they do have on Newcastle is they have a lot of big game experience.
Yeah.
And that's their advantage.
That's the only difference, Sean. Honestly, so the only difference is that they've got players that have won trophies. Even your Rashford's won the Europa League and the Carabao Cup previously. They've got two players in that team that have won big trophies. That's the only difference. But what I've noticed about Man United is that they give the ball away a lot. They'll try and risk passes. They'll try and risk move from difficult positions. Fake Bruno, as I said on Monday, he's the biggest culprit for it. He tries risk passes that gives the ball away. And as you said, you watched the Leicester game. Leicester could have been 3-0 quite easily. And the game's different. If they take one of their chances, Harvey Barnes, it was a decent save by De Gea, but it was probably a bigger miss, a little bit like Almiron against Liverpool. It's a bigger miss than it was a good save. The game's different, and what we need to do is keep the ball, and we've got that triangle back, as you talked about, Sean. We've got Botman, Shaw, and Bruno in that little pocket to create the opportunities on the ball, to pass the ball and keep the ball in tight spots. If they can do that and break the lines, once you get past their midfield, it's open season. Because they do give chances. Now, the one thing I'll say is that you mentioned, it could be Maxi or Almiron to have the game of their lives. I actually think whoever plays up front could have the game of their life because, as you said, they are very narrow, and because our wingers play very wide, it will pull the centre back out at some point, whether it's the left centre back or the right centre back, and that then creates space for whoever's playing up front. So if the ball in the box is right, someone like Wilson or Isak could potentially cause havoc in there. And they've both got the beating of those centre-backs.
The thing about it as well is Casemiro, no matter who they start in there, they don't screen the centre-backs. They never screen. Their centre-backs are wide open. They have a very strange style of playing. I'm surprised it hasn't been found out yet, because they haven't really been pressed as aggressively as Newcastle press. My worry there is that Newcastle haven't got the fastest backline. And that's what happened to us against Liverpool. Our most reliable thing all season has been our offside trap because we can't rely on the pace of our back four in general. Botman isn't a slouch, but you're talking Schär and Botman, their average pace. Trippier isn't that quick, and Dan Burn obviously isn't that quick. Liverpool sprung our offside trap 3 times last week. They got 2 goals and Pope got sent off. I think last week I actually when I digested last week, I was like, this is a good thing. This is lesson learned. You can't press that high. The defense was probably 10 yards higher than it usually is. You can't press that high and aggressive, versus a front three that's so quick. And if we press like that against Rashford, who will look for that space in between Schär and Trippier, the same space that Cody Gakpo looked for and that Darwin Núñez looked for, a few times. I think Liverpool game and kind of getting beat like that and the recovery, because I thought we played very well when we went down to 10 men, was probably a good thing. People talk about our form being bad, but we've lost 1 game since the turn of Christmas. Not counting the Sheffield Wednesday, we've had a few draws and a few wins. Our form isn't bad. We just haven't been scoring goals, and that's it. And I think you have the likes of Callum Wilson and stuff like that. It looks like he's minding himself. He's not been at it for the last couple of weeks. I love Callum Wilson. I think he's fantastic, but he looks like a player that was protecting himself.
He did the same for the World Cup.
He did exactly the same for the World Cup. Yeah, so I'm hoping that we see a totally different player and fine, because in my opinion, he starts. If he's fit, he starts. you know, and from what I'm told, he is fit, you know. So look, I think Isaiah coming off the bench is probably even a better option than starting him, because he'll absolutely stretch the game. You know, I hope that when we went down to 10 men, that people see that any idea that anybody has that Isaiah as a number 9 is wrong. When you see him go wide, he absolutely stretches teams. He needs ball into feet and he needs to be facing up players. You know, it's the same as a Joelton mistake. Like, you know, putting him as back to goal is, you're wasting a player. You know, he's not a Wilson replacement. He's either playing off the front. He's either playing off a number 9 or else he's playing wide. You know, because you see it like ASM and Isaiah, they absolutely stretch that Liverpool defense with 10 men. You know, if you're doing that against Manchester United with 65 minutes, 70 minutes gone on the clock, and they haven't got the quickest back four either, and they're aging, you know, he'll get opportunities in behind the likes of Shaw or as a Diallo or whoever they start at the full back positions, like, you know, and Varane tends to get dragged very high as well, like, you know, good centre back, but he's not the centre back that he was, you know. So there's a lot of flaws in that Manchester United team, and I think a lot of fans are looking at that form guide road actually watching them play.
Yeah, so you don't think we need snookers for looking at that Barcelona game tomorrow, and I'll be watching every tackle going in.
I hope they're fully fit. You know, I don't want any excuses or any nonsense. But why, like, you know, I think we have a team of 11 players that play for each other, and they will go out against every single team and give 100%, and that's all we ask for. You know, I don't want to look at another team for injuries or red cards or sendings off. I think it's a bit of nonsense, being honest with you. You know, I want them full tilt and I want us full tilt, and I think we'll beat them. You know, I don't care about their players getting sent off or who's fit, because I think we have it in our locker to beat them. I think we will be that bit more hungrier. You know, that's what I feel about it, and I think the aggressive press won't suit him. You know, I'm interested to see how he implements Joelinton. Does he implement him in the space to cover Rashford's running, or does he sit him in on top of Casemiro and trying to shut him down? You know, because it's either Guimaraes has to keep an eye on Rashford, because Rashford will try to sit in between the defence and the midfield, or else Joelinton keeps an eye on him. My opinion, I'd probably start off with Joelinton keeping an eye on Rashford and see how the game plays out. You know, and let Casemiro have the ball in his own half of the pitch. You know, and see how the game progresses from there. I don't know. Maybe I'm overconfident, like, but I don't know. I think it's written in the stars in a sense, like, you know, and even without that, and even with Nick Pope getting sent off, it's a big loss. Like, you know, I don't rate Karius at all. You know, I'm not going to get caught up in this. It was only a bad final. He was also terrible in the final against Roma. You know, if people forget both legs of that game as well, he was shocking. And the pre-season afterwards, he wasn't great. Like, so let's hope he has a good game, you know, but at the end of the day, we have to outscore him, as simple as that. Like.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say about written in the stars. I was just watching the 12th Man podcast with Pete. Pete was on before with Dan. And even Dan from Man United, he turned around and he said, it's written in the stars that Karius is going to have a blinder.
It is, like, isn't it? It's this Amazon documentary. Like, you have this handsome blonde German fucker coming in there for the final, like, you know, and it's just like everything you want to do about it. He goes up, he has an absolute worldie in the final. He ends up keeping the spot and getting us into the Champions League. You know, it's a proper goal kind of story, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every Man U fan I speak to, it's almost like they were more confident when Pope was in goal. Now Karius is in goal, they're thinking, shit, could he be the one? And it's crazy, because on Saturday evening we were probably every single one of us were the opposite. We were like, shit, Karius could be the one that maybe loses the final. But yeah, look,
you know what, the last time I watched Karius play was the Champions League final. I was over in Portugal with my buddy. We said we'd go over there went over there for 2 days for the final and stuff like that for piss up. He's a Liverpool fan. I had the time of my life with Karius. You know, like, he got onto me the minute Pope got sent off, like, and he's been ripping me every day since. He was like, I swear to God, I'm going to go to your house, I'm going to bang down your door just to celebrate in your face. So, yeah, look, like, it's, I don't know. Look, it is what it is. He's, again, look, like, he's a goalkeeper.
The one thing I'll say is, I said on Monday as well, is that we've had games this season where the defence has been that good that the goalkeeper Pope has not had much to do. No. So I'm not saying that's possible again, because it's a final, and look, you know, Man United will try and go for it, but giving him as less work to do as possible is going to be beneficial for us.
Look, like, even outside of his goalkeeping, something that's very relevant in today's game is a keeper that's good with his feet as well. You know, he's excellent with his feet. he's a great passer of the ball, like, and he is a good sweeper keeper. So I think Pope, if you look at the stats, Pope is probably the best sweeper keeper in the Premier League this season for intercepting ball and playing high and actually kind of cutting out play and stuff like that. His stats are fantastic. But I think the likes of Sanchez and stuff like that, or even Karius, and they're just better on the ball. They're better at moving the ball. They're quicker at moving the ball, and they can pick out passes that a little bit better. Look, maybe that kind of plays into our advantage in the final. We don't know. I think you'll know how his game's going to go with the first shot and goal. Do you know what I mean? So, look, he's a professional. He's 29 years of age. He had a great career. Besides that kind of end of the season with Liverpool, like the first half of that season, he was like they were talking him up like he was going to be the next German number one. Took a huge confidence hit. Like, how's he recovered over the last 2 years?
That page up for Karius. I saw it there last night. I don't know if it's still there now.
It was one Pete put on, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, that was 2017-2018 Champions League season. But I think someone in the I think Andrew Musgrove mentioned last night, he had something like in that same season, he had 17 clean sheets in the league as well.
He was absolutely flying that season. Up until around, I think it was the quarterfinals. He dropped a clanger in the quarterfinals, and then he had a bad one in the semi-final and in the final as well, and in a couple of league games. It looks like whatever happened in and around there, kind of coming to the end of the season, his season took a shit. Like, he had a couple of bad games, a couple of nervy kind of catches and stuff like that. Like, there was a thing when he signed for Newcastle. There was a fella put up like one of his compilations of his downfall, like, and it was almost like it was about 10 games left in the season, and he just he hit the skids, like, for some reason.
It's confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like playing for Liverpool and with the expectations they have and the type of season they were having, because let's face it, up until the final, they were just smashing teams week in, week out. And if you're playing under that sort of pressure with that expectation and you drop a clanger or you make a mistake, you're going to be made to remember it. Like, look, let's not forget for all the mistakes. Alisson's made a massive blooper last night.
Keepers make mistakes, but
he's got stuff in the bank. He's got stuff in the bank, not just at Liverpool, but at Roma, because he was an outstanding keeper at Roma, which is why they signed him. And because he's got that in the bank, and it's almost like, oh well, we're not going to blame him. He's kept them in the league in any sort of decent position this season because of how good he's been. We win the game if it wasn't for him on Saturday, even with 10 men. It's that kind of thing. But every keeper makes mistakes, as you say, Sean. And
it's the recovery from it, though, is the worry for me.
Yeah,
if he has a shaky 10 minutes, you're thinking, fuck, we're in for a long one here. Like, whereas if he has 2 or 3 good saves, or if there's a little bit of a confidence build up, because he's obviously somebody that struggles with confidence. Like you're talking first half of that season, he was one of the best keepers in the league. Being tipped to get a call up for Germany, and then that drop off was astronomical. Like, you're just hoping that he has rebuilt it. But like, players have psychologists and psychiatrists and all this kind of stuff now these days, so like, you're hoping that he has worked for a professional, that he has got this part of his game, that if he does make a mistake, he has kind of building blocks to kind of get himself ready and adjusted, like, so look, fingers crossed he pulls it out. Like,
Sean,
I think the interesting thing about that is, though, keepers can learn from the mistakes, and I think that's the same with what Karius can do. Karius can learn from his mistakes. It'll always be in the back of his mind, but once, if he makes one good save early on in the game, that'll settle him down. But I think the other good thing you've got to remember as well, we've got a fantastic man manager in Eddie Howe, his coaching team, that'll have given him the confidence to, that he needs to be playing in this sort of game as well. Not that he probably needs it. We've said before, he's experienced at this level, Champions League, Premier League. He's a German international, we've mentioned before. Obviously, probably would have played more games if it wasn't for Manuel Neuer. So he's probably got the best backroom team behind him that he could probably want to have him on a confidence basis.
You'd wonder, though, like, with the potential of this, why didn't he include him in the squad coming up to the final? Like, if you brought him into the squad and had him just in and around the first team, with the potential of something could have happened to Pope, that he's definitely playing in the final. For me, he's micromanaged Callum Wilson kind of in the build up to the final. Why didn't he do the same with Karius and just include him? It's not a criticism. Like, I suppose it's easy to look in hindsight and say that went wrong, you should have done this. But like, just even including him in a couple of games, just to get him in and on the first team squad, like,
Sean, while we're on the topic then of just individual players, maybe we should, and you have a massive whiteboard there behind you. Maybe we'll have a tactical masterclass from you. But you're 1 to 11. Who are you starting?
Carrius, Trippier, Sharp, Botman, Bourne, Joelinton, Longstaff, and Bruno. I'm going Wilson, ASM, and Almiron. Picks itself. You know, the thing about Newcastle is we have too many functional midfielders and not enough tactical midfielders. You know, you look at when you talk about like your diamonds, like you have Sharp, Botman, and Bruno who play together. Then you have Bruno, Longstaff, and you have Joelinton. Say, you know, you look at Joelinton, you look at Longstaff, and you look at Willock. They pretty much do the same thing at different levels. Joelinton is, for me, he's world class. You know, you have Willock who's a couple of levels lower, and then you have probably Longstaff who's a level lower. You know, but neither of them are going to get you the goal or assist or pick out that pass or, you know, break a defence down, and that's where Newcastle struggle massively. You know, with the other two sides of the triangle, you know, you have Bruno at the base of it, and you have whether it's Longstaff, Willock, Joelinton. None of them can pick that line break and pass, or they're not going to get it. They're not going to grab you a goal or dig you out with a goal in the game and stuff like that. Like, you know, we have too many midfielders that function within a pressing system. You know, so that's why you need like a James Maddison or somebody in there. You know, another dynamic. You know,
started already.
Come on,
it is though. You know, it's a massive.
I'm just getting started. Just
if the Quetta wasn't cup
time, at least give me an hour. I normally talk about Maddison on the hour mark. Like,
but no, I'm just saying though. Like I think that's a huge flaw in the Newcastle setup. You know, people talk about Dan Burn or they talk about, you know, this, that, and the other player. It's that third player in midfield that we miss. You know, Bruno, Joelinton, perfect. But Longstaff, I love him because he gives 100%, the same with Willock, but they're just not technical enough to match that three. Absolute workhorses, give 100%, you know, week in, week out, but they're not going to pick that pass. They're not going to get you those goals or assists. There's a big decision to be made around that midfield three come the summer. You know, because you need to get that dynamic right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know whether obviously Daz and Pete will agree with that. I think I've noticed it a bit more when Longstaff plays with Bruno, you do tend to see him being able to, I think it's probably because of the space that's created in midfield that people are more focused on Bruno. He has been able to play the odd through ball that's, you know, been a fantastic through ball that's set with, you know, like an attack or an assist or something like that. But I think obviously, we touched on it last night, and obviously it was something that Chris had mentioned about, obviously, before the injuries and people let go about Bruno come back into the team, would he get back in, obviously, if we'd had a good run over the last 3 games? But I think it's been clear to say that over those last 3 games, the Bruno's integral to that midfield three. He makes everything tick. It goes through him. He creates everything. And with him not being there, there's been nobody who's a natural creator, as you're saying, Sean. But I think when Bruno comes back in, Longstaff does have that little bit of creativity too. Not to the level as what you said, Maddison or someone of that like level, but it's nice to see he's got that little bit of a string to a boat, you know, if needs be.
But see, the thing about the big thing with Longstaff and Willock that leaves them down, in my opinion, you know, is they can't take the ball in midfield with their back facing the opposition. They have to be turned and they have to take it in a stride. They find it very hard to get turned. You see the way Besic in midfield there for Liverpool, the way he turned out. You know, granted, you know, you look at it technically and you say he turned onto the wrong foot. He should have shielded Longstaff with his body, but Longstaff was after committing himself. It didn't really matter. Longstaff and Willock really struggle to get themselves turned when they receive the ball. If you give Willock the ball on the run, he's an absolute gazelle. Like, there's no catching the man. Like, you know, strong as an ox. There's no stopping him. But we don't have enough midfielders that can actually get turned and pick a pass. You know, and you're seeing that now with Bruno Guimaraes, you know, being out. You have nobody in that midfield. Joelinton can do it to an extent. Because Joelinton is incredible at passing and moving. You know, he creates that space so he doesn't have to turn. You know, when you have Joelinton, Longstaff, and Willock in the midfield, you're very restricted on actually turning and making a quick attack. You know, and that's what's left us down with Bruno. You know, Bruno's probably one of the best in the world at receiving the ball with his back facing the other team. Like, you know, he turns, he picks out players. It's unreal. You know, what we're doing at the moment, and people have to understand as well where we are in our stage of progression. Like, you know, we're only a year and a half into it, not even. You know, like, we're 3 transfer windows into it. And at the moment, for me, you have Longstaff and you have Joelinton who are playing as defensive blocks for the wingers. So effectively, you have, granted, Admiral works hard, but ASM, he doesn't do enough tracking and stuff like that. So your likes of Joelinton and stuff like that, they become defensive blocks, your wingers, so they can't really be that attacking. Like, you see the impact that ASM has had on Dan Burn. Like, there's way more turnovers, so Dan Burn is being highlighted a lot more. Like, and now you have Joelinton, which is pushing centrally, which is leaving a huge gap. So you're seeing Dan Burn get highlighted in the last couple of weeks, and he's not good, he's not this, he's not that, he's the other. But it's the fact that I'd say if you got the stats on our turnovers in the last 3 games versus with ASM out of the team, the difference is astronomical, I'd say. And that's the problem. They're finding it easier to target them at the moment. That will change on Sunday.
It goes back to the point that I mentioned a while back, is that you just touched on it. Bruno Guimaraes is the only one that can break the lines with quality and creativity. You talked about Joelinton, and you're absolutely right. Nice triangle passes, can keep the ball, move and tick things along, as can Longstaff. Willett can, to maybe a lesser extent. His ability on the ball needs to improve, in my opinion. But that's where we need to decide as a club next season, what do we want? Do we want runners? Do we want workhorses? Or do we want that little bit of stardust, a little bit of creativity and quality that may not run all day for you, but will provide moments that will win the game? Now, the only one we've got in that midfield, centre midfield, is Bruno Guimaraes. And we put our house, our mortgage, our life on him every single game. And he's the one that's expected to make the difference, and he creates the difference. We need more than him, because if he gets suspended again next season, or if he gets injured for a significant period of time, we're going to be back where we've been the last 3 games. And we need somebody else to take the can to be able to produce those quality of moments when someone like Bruno is not available. And when you've got them both on the pitch, you're creating opportunities where you're not only creating chances to score, those type of creativity, get my words out, those type of creative players can score goals themselves. Now, you touched on Maddison, but there's many other players that we're linked to that can not only create chances, they can score them as well. And that makes a massive difference.
If you look at Longstaff and if you look at stats alone, he probably has one of the highest volumes of line breaking passes, right? Now look at that versus the quality of his line breaking passes. They're not great. I'm a big fan of Longstaff. I'm an advocate for him. Like, you might have seen all the abuse I get over it. But he is the perfect player for where we are now, because hard work gets you out of a bad situation. Eddie Howe came in and all he had to build on was the hard work in the dressing room. You see why he didn't want to lose the likes of Jacob Murphy and Lascelles and stuff like that. He wanted to keep the leadership group together, and he wanted them to build on the hard work. Hard work gets you out of a problem. Class and consistency is what keeps you out of it. And that's what they will add in the summer, So if you're looking at Longstaff, and if you're upgrading Longstaff with somebody who is that little bit more technical and with a bit of work rate as well, that changes the whole dynamic of the team. Because if he is available to have such a high volume of line breaking passes, imagine it with somebody who's actually technically better on the ball. So the system is right, but we have a couple of square pegs around the walls at the moment.
We always do.
We do, but it's for where we are in our progression. Like, it's absolutely, but where we are in our progression, we're way ahead of where I thought we'd be. Like in top 4, top 5 is probably a false position, reflective of our squad. Because we don't have many world beaters. As fans, we look at them and we'll say that they're all the best players in the world, and they'd start for Real Madrid in the morning. Like, but no, when you sit back and dissect it, like, we don't like, our first 11 isn't a first 11 of world beaters are a top 5. It's probably a false position where they are now. There's absolutely huge work to be done in the summer. Like, to keep this level. You can't keep this level with just hard work. There has to be huge improvements in the summer. And that's why I think that they probably held off on overstretching in January.
Sticking with the team then, Sean. So you've named your 1 to 11. So you have Willock and Isak to come off the bench to change things if we need to, or to mix it up a bit. And that's what you were looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's if Willock was fit. Like, I'm kind of about 2-3 weeks ago. There was a kind of I suppose getting a bit of noise about Willock and stuff like that, like saying that his injuries didn't look great and stuff like that, and he was kind of playing through the pain and stuff like that. And I think it was actually that one there. That's a very interesting one.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. Yeah. So one thing I can say is that Ashford has met with the owner of Leipzig a few times, and I think if we don't get Maddison, he's the man that we're going to get. So
I signed him on Football Manager Mobile about 4 years ago.
That's it, done deal, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, for Newcastle. He's still in my team, actually, if I go into it.
You knew about him before anyone else.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Like I said, write it down.
We heard what happened to the last Football Manager guy. He was Sarder Asmus, didn't we, mate?
Yeah.
I've just seen something, guys. Sorry to go off topic. That just is crazy to me. I've just seen him, and look, he's been on the channel. He's a friend of the channel, Matty from the Magpie channel, who's desperate for a ticket, and he's just paid £2,400 for a ticket to go to the Carabao Cup final. I just think that's crazy to me. I'll be honest, I've been offered tickets. I've been offered tickets at £400, £500, £600, £700. I cannot. I've got a family, wife and kids, mortgage. I cannot afford to pay that sort of money for one game. I can't do it, no matter how much I love the club. But to spend £2,400 on, it looks like it's just a ticket. Like it's not even like a box or hospitality or anything like that. What do you guys make of that? Because I just think that is crazy to me.
But it's you're feeding the system, then, like, aren't you? Like you're bad to sell it, but you're bad to buy it too. Like how can you rectify a problem if you're the cause of it as well? If a person has a ticket for $2,500 and if somebody is stupid enough to buy it, Jamie, there is, like, for me, I'm the same as yourself. I had my flights booked. I was planning to go over and stuff like that. I had up until last week. I had a ticket to sit in the Man United, and I got a Man United ticket, no bother, face value. I gave it to a mate of mine who's a big Man United fan. But I've saying to the lads there, I've been dealing with the same fella for years with tickets and stuff. I had 2 people I've been dealing with.
Is that this year's game?
No, that's Football Manager 2020.
You still got it there?
I still have it on my phone. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Jesus. I haven't played it since.
You need to get the PlayStation 5 version.
That's another show piece. Football Manager on the PlayStation was delayed by nearly 6 months, so I'm not buying it now. Wait until next season. Sorry, Sean.
I think the whole ticketing in general, though, like, I've had 2 people who I've kind of fell out with over the last couple of months. There was one person promised me a ticket, sent people over to him the whole lot, for the best part of nearly 10 years, and I sent somebody over to him for a game. I think it was like £40 for the ticket, and when he met up with him, he was like 150. So that's the cost price now. Yeah, I tried to charge him 150 face to face. I reported him because I knew his season ticket numbers and stuff like that, because I've had to get tickets off him for so long. But yeah, 150 face to face. There was another fella there I've been dealing with, and he wanted €750 off me for a ticket. And I've done a lot of stuff from, as in I put him in contact with people and stuff like that. Like €750. You're feeding the system. Like, I wouldn't pay it, and it's not the case of being mean or anything like that. Like, it's just you could probably justify that for one game, but like not a Carabao Cup final, and like you're feeding these fuckers there that like are just absolutely ripping people off. Like, it's disgusting. Like, the one thing I hate is that ripping people off for something that should be face value. Like, how can a ticket that's worth £80, how can it charge somebody £2,500 for it? Jesus. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, it needs to be stomped out. Like, but like how can't they, like, the ticket's allocated to a person's name and they're reselling it? How can't you trace it? It's absolutely nuts. Like,
yeah, I was taught that Daz and Peter know Darren, who comes on the live version when the fans come on. I was taught him before the game, and he turned around and he said one of his mates had managed to get a ticket, and literally straight away he sold it for £600, literally the same day. Wasn't even interested in going to the game. He just literally sold it. He wanted it so he could sell it and make a profit on it. I just can't, begs belief. I just don't understand why you'd want to do that. For me, that's not a true fan. I don't know about you guys, but
nah, you wouldn't do. But like, why would you do it? You know, like what's the? I don't know.
You're ripping
like,
off your fellow fans doing that.
You know,
More.
the ticket I passed on last week was, I think it was worth about €800 they were selling for a ticket stub, and I passed it over for face value. Like, because why would you rip off somebody that's probably a fellow fan or a friend? Like, you know, absolutely crazy.
It is completely.
The one thing I will say, and this is not defending it at all, because I don't defend people paying or charging those sort of prices, is that we don't know what their situation is. We don't know whether that £600 could feed their family, pay their bills, and this is why they're doing it. Like, they might really, really, really want to go to that game, but because they know how much money that ticket would cost, and they're weighing it up, a cup final first in 24 years, or pay bills for my kids, that might be a reason. And so again, we like to do this on the channel, play like the devil's advocate position. I'm just throwing that out there because, look, cost of living crisis, things are getting more and more expensive every day. People live for their football, but at some point it might have been the difference. Now, I could be completely wrong. This guy might be this guy or girl, I don't know who it was.
Yeah, but
an absolute clown, and just trying to, like you said, just play into the system and gain advantage. But I'm just kind of throwing an alternative out there. That's all.
But like, never get a leg up if you're pushing somebody else down. Like, you know, like,
great point.
Get me, like, I don't know this Matty fella, whatever his name is, like, you know, but like, financially, like, he's probably he might be getting a loan for this, or he might be putting himself into a situation where
I actually saw something. I don't know if it was on social media, but I read somewhere literally within the last hour that apparently someone, one of his sponsors for the channel, bought it from him. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I have read that in the last hour. But whether that's the case or not, I don't know.
And what is it? Is he like a YouTuber? Are
you there, Russ? I'm only joking.
Is he a YouTube channel as well, or?
Yeah, the Magpie channel. It's Matty from the Magpie channel.
Okay, I don't know. I probably came across it. I don't follow much people, to be honest. Yeah, but look, if he's doing it for content and stuff like that, what he's probably paying for, he's probably making back. You know, he's probably doing match day blogs and all this kind of stuff, like, you know. So maybe he's probably getting the money back what he's paying for, so he can justify it.
Yeah. Possibly. I saw that and I just thought, you know, it was obviously he's buzzing because he's got the ticket, and he couldn't miss the game. But yeah, I just looked at the price and thought, wow, like that's big money. But there were lots of variables as to why that might have happened. But I just wanted to put that out there because, you know, it's like I say, it's not even hospitality. It's not even like you've got any extras with that. You're literally just paying for your ticket to get into the ground and watch the game. So definitely an interesting.
Yes, I know a fella that was selling Wembley Club tickets for that price.
No comment.
I want to say, tell me more, but I feel like we're going into
no, we won't go there.
That's the case.
We won't go there. If Martin was here, I would. He'd love it. He's probably scrambling for the phone now, I'd say, to get on.
Yeah,
so I think PDK has answered for you though, there, Sean.
Yeah, and on that note, I'd just like to say, evening, Martin. Right, Richie, we go for some questions.
Yeah, we'll do. First of all, I wanted to give a shout out to Dan. Thank you very much for the donation to the channel, mate. Much appreciated. We always appreciate whatever it may be, a couple of quid or whatever. It means so much to the lads, and we much appreciate that donation. However, he has actually asked a question as well, and he says, since ESM is coming on our left, look a bit of a weakness. The chemistry on that side just doesn't seem to work between ESM and Burn. So if Willock is back fit, do we get him back? Do we go back to him and J7 over ESM?
Me personally, I would. And I think if Willock wasn't injured, like nursing an injury, I don't think it'd be a question. You know, I think we all look for a fact this is ASM's last couple of games for Newcastle, like, you know, so let's hope he goes out on a high. You know, he gets some great memories and stuff like that, like, you know, but I think it's ASM for the final anyway, you know. But if Willock was fit in the build up the last couple of weeks and stuff like that, if he wasn't carrying this lock, I don't think it'd be a question that'd be Willock and Wellington, you know, with Dan Byrne on that left hand side.
You say that with a lot of confidence that ASM is going in the summer.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So
yeah, I'll look. It's the final and no negativity and all this kind of stuff. But we'll do a show closer to the summer and we'll talk about it in a bit more detail. But yeah, his time is done.
Is that an invite for squad game 3 then, Daz? There.
we'll note that. Put that in the show notes for that one on our agenda.
Daz, I think you must have put this one in. It's a question.
Yes, it was. From PDK. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. In emotional games, i.e. Bournemouth's Eddie return and LFC to stay in the top 4, is there a worry that the team may fold under pressure of big occasions, or maybe my nerves?
I don't think so. You know, you look at Bournemouth at home, we dominated them. Like they caught us on a quick break as well. You know, when Belling scored in the first game, you know, we dominated them, couldn't score. You know, I think if was it Joelinton there had the chance, I think Isaac picked him out in the first half early on. If he takes that chance, it's a different game. You know, and the same away from home. That away from home game was probably one of the worst games of football I ever watched. You know, you had two teams just looked like they couldn't find their rhythm. You know, they've done a great job of stopping each other. I think Trippier has kind of held himself back the last couple of weeks, being honest with you. He's not been as aggressive as getting up and down the line and stuff, you know. So I think, like, say, Trippier and Wilson and stuff like that have kind of held a little bit back in reserve with this cup final in mind. You know, and I think you've seen that in a couple of forms, like Bournemouth away and stuff like that. Like, but no, I don't think will the occasion get to him? I don't think so. You know, I really don't, because they're going into it with nothing to lose. You know, and it's the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable there. You know, the first 10 minutes, obviously, you know, it's an easy thing to say. The first 10 minutes will tell you a lot. But I think Eddie Howe and his management team and stuff like that will have the players well versed on what they're going to expect, and the likes of Trippier and stuff like that with a strong voice. But when you have the likes of Lascelles and the likes of, you know, you have your Jacob Murphys and stuff like that around the team that are a really positive influence and stuff like that, you know, I don't think the outside noise will bother them too much.
Yeah, Joy Tune for Life put a good stat in before. Was obviously we were talking about Man United being able to get at, and of the fact that there's no tracking back from. And obviously, one of the things he mentioned was that Garnacho played on the left against Leicester was brought off at half time because he wasn't tracking back. Hence why Leicester had so many chances starting from the left in the first half on Saturday, which obviously that's just backs up what you were talking about earlier on in the show. And Russ, our sponsor, thanks for joining us again, Russ. He wants to know, Sean, who gets the first goal on Sunday?
Do you know what? I've been kind of going around in my head with this, but Botman keeps on popping up for some reason. Because you know what?
I said that last night.
Our set pieces have been absolutely brutal. Like, you know, like Trippier's stats are sometimes stats are sugar-coated in the sense of he delivers the ball into the box and it's met by a Newcastle head, but the delivery is very flat. You know, there's no real pace on it and stuff like that. Like, you know, and Botman rarely gets on the ball in the box. It's always Fabian Schär. I just think I don't know, for some reason, Botman is sticking out in my head that he's going to get the goal.
I said that last night. The reason why I mentioned it, and it was actually Keith Downey mentioned it later on, about an hour after our show finished, was because I just think it would be perfect for Sven Botman to get. It was more like to get the winning goal, because Ten Hag got rid of him in Ajax. I just think he did too, yeah. To just sum it back up and get his own back on him. But I don't know. I'll ask the question that we got asked last night, and to Daz and Pete, who would you, you know, emotional wise or just practical wise, who would you like to see Newcastle get the winning goal for Newcastle on Saturday? On Sunday, sorry.
First of all, I don't care who it is. Once we hit the winning goal and we win, but for me, I'll go for my favorite player. I'll go for Bruno. I'd love to see him score. But and I'll answer the other question: who predicts someone to score? I'm going to say Miggy. That combination down that wing that always happens. Trippier playing him in, Miggy.
Pete?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go for an Englishman. I'd love Wilson to score. I'd love Wilson to score the winning goal. That would just cement him as a legend at the club for what he's done. If he can score that winning goal, I think that will that I think that would probably propel him into having a really good end of the season. And look, for all of his injury issues, I really like Wilson because of the way he plays as a striker. His injuries are a concern, and I don't see him being at the club very long after this season. But yeah, it'd be great for him to score the winning goal. Yeah, him or Longstaff.
If I could pick one player I'd love was Dan Burn.
Yeah.
I really would. You know, I watched his piece there. I was on Sky Sports there recently about being a Newcastle fan, growing up in the area and stuff like that. Like, and there's just the emotional attachment to it and stuff. Like, I'd love if Dan Burn got it. You know, I really would. He's one. If I could pick someone. You know, and like when you say about Wilson, like I think Wilson's extension to his contract actually ties in with a coaching role as well. I think there's an option to take a coaching role, so he might be a player with his injuries and stuff like that. He might cut his career short. What did you know? 30, 31. You know, he's maybe 2 years left on his deal. You know, he's after moving his family to Newcastle. You know, which is something that didn't happen for a long time. His family's up there now. You know, maybe it's something that he kind of sidestep into coaching or something. You never know. Not a lot of players are keen on dropping down the leagues, like especially when you're injury prone.
Yeah. If you read I don't know if you read the Sean Longstaff article today that came out. It was a really, really good read, and it just shows where he was at before Eddie Howe came in. He was rock bottom. Seeing a psychiatrist with regards to working on his mental state. He obviously credits Matt Ritchie for saving him, pulling him aside, and equally Eddie Howe for changing his career around. And you know what, like it's easy to point fingers at footballers, but when you hear the intricacies of what they've gone through, because it is difficult, they get paid handsomely, and we're absolutely right to criticise that at times, but they are still going through difficulties and they are still put under massive, intense pressure. And to see what he's been through and how he's come out the other end. And look, me and Daz have kind of endorsed him over the course of the season when lots of others people haven't. And recognise his performances. And I think, those 2 goals against Southampton were big moments for him. But for more of an attacking player, I know I get the Dan Burn situation, but I think he's kind of had his moment with that goal against Leicester. But for him for Longstaff to be the one that to score the goal to lift the cup for the club, like, because he's going to be the one that probably outstayed Dan Burn. Dan Burn's 31 right now. Longstaff's 25. He's still
Longstaff's going to get to see Champions League finals and stuff, Pete. So he's going to be spoiled.
I genuinely believe this, that and I don't mean he's going to start, but I don't see Sean Longstaff leaving the club anytime soon. I would not be surprised to see, even with other players coming in years to come, I would not be surprised in seeing Sean Longstaff here in another 5 years' time at 30 years old. I really wouldn't, because he knows what the club means.
But you don't want to lose these players. Like it's as I said there a while back, like he's Newcastle's Darren Fletcher. Like there was players that Alex Ferguson held on to that he could have left go way before, and it's just because they're the tone setters. Like what you need in a team like that is you need a tone setters. Like Jacob Murphy, Eddie Howe absolutely idolizes him. The thing that we have to remember as football fans is we judge players for 90 minutes out of a 7-day week of training almost. 90 minutes is the snapshot that we get, and we make criticisms on that. Is Jacob Murphy good enough football to play for Newcastle now? No, absolutely not. But what he does in the training ground and the way he is in and around the squad and stuff like that, he's a vital part of the squad. The Monday to Friday squad, the what we don't see.
But what you've said is squad. You've said squad. And he's going to be a player that even if he doesn't start every week, that isn't going to moan, that isn't going to whine, that he'll come in, play every other week, and do a job for the team and do it with a smile on his face, because he knew where he was under Steve Bruce and where he is now under Eddie Howe, and he'll always appreciate that no matter what. And so those type of players, you look at Milner now at Liverpool, comes off the bench. I know he's not a Scouser, but still, like he knows and appreciates the position that he is. So he comes on and does a job here and there, doesn't moan, doesn't whine, just gets on with his business. Like you talked about, Aaron Fletcher did exactly the same. Ji-sung Park at Man United did exactly the same. You could go on other clubs and talk about other players that did exactly the same. Sean Longstaff could be that for Newcastle, and you always need a player like that. Regardless.
It's funny, like, because I was actually sent on, when there was kind of rumors that some were people leaving and stuff like that, and somebody sent me on a list and they were like, these 5 players will not be going anywhere. And it was Sean Longstaff, Matt Ritchie, Jacob Murphy, Jamal Lascelles, and Gillespie, the keeper. Like, whatever Gillespie does, he's meant, maybe it's because he's a Geordie, he's a local lad, he knows the club, but they're meant to be excellent in and around the dressing room. Tone, like, they set the tone, like, and you need those people, they raise the bar. It's funny, like, but you have, it's funny when people talk about, like, like the way that they go on about footballers online and stuff like that, they see it, Jimmy, imagine having that amount of abuse, like, I see it myself, but look, I lean into it, like, I enjoy it.
You bring it on, though.
I enjoy it, look, like, because as I always say, I have zero emotional attachment to Twitter. If somebody thinks Twitter is the real world, then they need to get their head checked, like, so when I see somebody getting spiked up and stuff like that, I'm like, fucker, I catcha. But I actually had a Newcastle player reach out to me recently. He jumped in my DMs based on a tweet I put out, and he thanked me for his support, and like, for me, he doesn't follow me, I didn't tag him or anything like that. It was just a general thing put up on the Newcastle hashtag, and he dropped into my DMs and stuff like that and thanked me for it, and we had a little bit of back and forth about it, crazy. Like, so if he's seeing mine, like, imagine all the other he's seeing, and you have people ranting and raving on like TikToks and all this kind of stuff, like absolutely slating people, like, it's tough on confidence, though,
I apologize, Chris Wood.
Do you feel guilty now? You ran him all the way to the forest.
No. unless we go to a penalty shootout, I'll be there thinking, maybe he would have been handy.
Chris Wood was my favourite Newcastle player because I used to be able to get people so wound up with him. I was like, he could have an absolute stinker, and I'd be saying, "Fuck, it's solid game, Chris Wood." Like, and I just turn off the notifications and just leave it play out. There was Chris Wood, and then there was the back three was a good one as well for a while. So yeah, you have to have fun with it.
I still can't forget when you did the Chris Wood with West Ham and about Zuma's.
Yeah. That's legendary. That one.
There's a few. One of the biggest ones as well was the Calvert-Lewin one, when he said that he's in full agreement with Arsenal, and Frank Lampard's after dropping him because there was a big fallout. I think I put out on the Thursday, and I was watching Sky Sports News, and next I seen Frank Lampard getting asked the question, and is the agent proud to report to say that there has been no deals agreed with Arsenal? I was like, oh, hell. I was just chatting to the lads there before we came on as well. Like, my brother, he's a big Arsenal fan, like absolutely loves Arsenal. So with the Modric thing, like, I seen it kind of tipping around like that. So I said, I probably tweet out, see if it catches on, like, so I probably tweet about Modric saying he was definitely an Arsenal player and stuff. But 10 minutes later, he texts me. And he was like, it's a done deal, like, because he's not on any social media, like, so he kind of caught up on a fan page or whatever like that, like, so he was delighted himself, like, nailed on. Next, about 20 minutes later, I just got a message off me, you effing prick, will you stop tweeting about Arsenal? So look, like, you have to have a bit of fun with it, like, take everything I say with a pinch of salt.
Right, go back to questions. Well, it's not really a question on this, but I think all of us would probably want this tomorrow night. Is Man United to play 120 minutes tomorrow against Barcelona? I think every one of us would want that. I know I do. They couldn't have asked for a harder game 3 days before the cup final, really. So, do you think it'll go to 120 minutes, lads?
I think United will beat them in.
Interesting.
I'm not looking for 120 minutes. I'm looking for hamstring tweaks,
injuries,
half pulls, ankle rolls, and they're the kind of things I'm looking for. Thursday to Sunday, that I don't want anyone to be seriously hurt.
Yeah, nothing like
come out for a week. No. Come out for a week, 2 weeks max. That's fine. That's okay for me. That sees them out of the final. That's what I'm looking for.
Are you looking for Barcelona players to do some Sabitzer tackles on them on the?
No, nothing like that.
That was mental, wasn't it?
I'm not looking for like horrible injuries. What I'm looking for is Rashford running down that left-hand side at full pelt and then holds the left hamstring. At that point, I'll be punching the air, going, "Yes, Casemiro getting stuck into a meaty challenge." But but rolling the ankle on the way in, and they're the kind of things I'm looking for. Just the Keaty's put in there, just the slight muscle strains, just a week out type of thing. Absolutely spot on. That's what I'm looking for. Look, but equally, Sean, you said it right at the beginning. Even with those players, we can still win. But why not get the help? We've given them the help with Nick Pope. Why not get the little help along the way?
Yeah, every little helps.
Sean, we're going to say something about the Sabitzer thing.
What's that?
You were going to say something about Sabitzer when we mentioned it. You said it was mad or something.
It was mental, wasn't it? Like,
Do you think it was a red card?
Nailed on.
So I know I messaged Pete and DM Pete about it because to mention it on the show, I think it was on one of the shows I wasn't on. I was at night being Sunday night, and you looked back and you thought it was a yellow, didn't you, Pete?
I don't think it's a red card.
I don't know. Why not?
And the reason why I say that is if you look at it again in full time, if you look at the stills and the pictures that they look at on Sky, on socials, they show it you in slow time. If you look at it in quick time, yes, the studs are up, but it's a very in and out.
If you think of it this way, right? If you swing a punch at a player, you're sent off for intent. So if you go studs up on the knee, it's a yellow card? Absolutely not. The leg is a lot more dangerous than the fist. So the intent was there. If you're going up, leg side on is probably the most powerful position you can actually position your foot in. Side on to the side of the knee, the intent was there. If there was a bit more motion from the player, it doesn't matter. The intent was there. If you look at the rule book, you're sent off on intent. If you swing at a player and you miss, you're sent off. If you go to bop a player and you miss, you're sent off. If you swing a kick at a player on the ground and you miss, you're sent off because it's intent. How in open action, when his body didn't have to be in that position, it was an irregular movement, and it was a movement towards the knee, and probably the weakest part of the knee as well. Granted, I get what you're saying. He pulled out of it. There was no damage done, and I think he probably realized last minute what he was doing. But if there was a little bit more motion from the other player, he was done. Career ended. Do you get me? That is a career-ending tackle. You're talking inadvertently bending the knee. That's ligaments gone on both sides. The intent was there, and that's the thing. Were you
surprised there was no retrospective action, Sean?
I think based on what Pete is saying, and I think that's how they justified it. They said that the stills look a lot worse than open play. But should there be retrospective action? I think that's a horrible fucking challenge. To go in like that. And I think Bruno's challenge was a shocking challenge as well. People can say what they want about the players losing control. He went to do it.
It was a red card.
The 10 minutes before that, right, he was running around with his head up his ass. Whatever was wrong with him, he was going to kick everything. He was leaving his mark on somebody. Whatever happened, maybe something happened in the tunnel or something happened somewhere. But he was running around the place trying to do someone. It's probably the best thing that he's got over the system, because it had been like the young player, like Dozy, whatever, he stepped over the ball. Granted, it was an irregular movement for him, but he went inside on his own leg across his body. He went to do him. Like, I love Bruno. I think he's fucking best thing since sliced pan, but he went to do him, plain and simple. And the intent was there. Even if he missed him with it, it's probably still a sending off because the intent was there. I think it's the same for Sablitzer or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. Right. Of course, because you're on, Sean, there's some obviously transfer questions coming as well and other stuff regards the club going forward. So I'll move on to those ones now. PDK's got another question for you, and he says, question for Sean. With our squad lacking quality, do you see us going heavy on youth in the summer, or will it be more here and now players?
The problem with our youth system is we're not set up to actually bring in the youth right now. I think we'll probably miss out on Chris Rigg at the moment. Being honest with you, I think he'd probably say at Sunderland because we don't have the facilities to accommodate him. And it's plain and simple. Newcastle isn't the place right now where you bring a 16-year-old for development. And that's God's honest truth. It's not something that's available right now. Our academy system and behind the scenes is absolutely dreadful. You're talking they're looking at adding about 10 more heads to the backroom staff at the moment to facilitate where we need to grow. And with the turnaround of backroom staff and stuff like that, that will chop and change over time. But I don't think that we have the facility now to bring in a 16-year-old player. Even at that, look at the reaction to Anderson after playing only 20 minutes. He was getting ripped apart on social media. Chris Rigg, talking to people and stuff like that. He's already affected by the noise on social media about, whereas Greer's going to progress. Never mind getting abuse on social media, being a 17-year-old, 16-year-old playing for Newcastle United. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's surprised. And you know what? If I was advising the young fella myself, I'd tell him to sign a short-term contract at Sunderland, probably a 2 or 3 year deal, and keep your development going there. For now, we're not set up that way. I know they've done training ground upgrades and all this kind of stuff, but I think we had only one academy graduate last year, or one scholarship handed out for Premier League club. That's probably the worst ever in Premier League history. Like we are kind of, it's almost at the moment we're like a Lamborghini with a Ford Fiesta engine. It's like we look brilliant now because everything is happening. But it's all happening in the future. But like if you look back from the first team squad, our reserve teams, our youth teams, absolutely atrocious. There is no setup there. There is no path to progression. That will change over time. They've spent a lot of time over the last couple of months kind of over and back to Villarreal. And that's what they want to mimic, the setup that they have over there. So over there's accommodation on the training ground. So at the moment, there's an American family with their young fella over there. And he's there for 3 months, and the family are actually living on the training ground with him while he's actually going through a trial period and all this kind of stuff. They have people over and back from Ireland all the time. What they do is they set up camps all over the world, and they bring players over for 2 and 3 weeks now and then, and their family can come over them and they can stay with them, and the players live actually on the training ground itself. And that's what they're trying to create. They're trying to create that type of facility, and they're trying to mimic what they have in Villarreal at the moment. Have a look at it tonight, how Villarreal is set up and stuff like that. It's absolutely fascinating. So I think us investing in youth heavily for that age group is a bit off, for the likes of Matthias Franca and stuff like that. They're still working on that deal. They were trying to push it through, but why they didn't go so aggressively on it is because it was a big financial outlay for a player that probably wouldn't get his work permit approved. Like I know I put up a thing there for previously. It was about how Brexit and stuff like that implicates like where we are now and where Brexit actually kind of is holding us back. You have players at the moment, Brazilian players and stuff like that are signing for clubs. Chelsea, and those clubs, but those clubs are giving parents and partners jobs at the club, and then they're getting visas as skilled workers. Whereas Newcastle aren't doing that at the moment. We're not getting in a Lucas Paqueta or like do you ever hear the Dan Crowley rule at Arsenal where that to sign him they actually got his dad a job as a scout and his dad never looked at a football in his life kind of thing. But that's what a lot of clubs are doing. They're getting in young Brazilian players, and whether it's their girlfriends or their parents and stuff like that, they're actually employing them as part of the club, so they get visas. So it's okay for the player to get a visa, but an 18 or 19-year-old probably doesn't want to move directly to the northeast of Newcastle by himself, and then his partner or whoever's only getting a bridging visa, whereas these clubs are actually giving them jobs. We're not set up like that at the moment. It's not something that we can oversee because we're so understaffed in a lot of these places. You look at Andrea Santos, he still hasn't got his visa for Newcastle. Financially, we can't stretch ourselves to spend 25 or 30 million on a Matthias Franca in January and not have him until the summer. That's just not where we were, and that's what delayed the deal. Will we see investment in those type of players in the summer? Absolutely. And then work through the work permits and stuff like that. But for the players kind of that would be around the under-21 team, we probably won't see a whole lot of investment. We see the likes of Alex Murphy, and those kind of players coming through. But there's a reason why we missed out on so many youth players in the summer. There's probably about 15, 20 youth players visited the training grounds and stuff like that, and they chose to go to the likes of Southampton and Chelsea and other clubs instead of us.
I think you meant Santos to Chelsea.
Yeah.
To Newcastle.
Oh, sorry.
Thinking, what's going on here? I do disagree. I do think that there's still a really good chance of us getting rid from Sunderland. I get what you're saying. He's been exposed to first team football at Sunderland, but two reasons for that. One of them that Sims, who was doing really well at Sunderland, has gone back to Everton because they needed him. And he started, funnily enough, at Anfield off the back of that. But secondly, is that they wanted to give him first team football, almost to kind of say that he started his career at Sunderland, to keep him kind of tied down. But that just goes to show how weak their lineups are and their squad is at the moment. Like they're playing championship football. Like that's to be expected. We're playing Premier League football, and I get what you're saying about our academy setup. And to be fair, I think it was Michael Plummer mentioned that you're absolutely right, and you are, with regards to we've neglected the junior teams, and there is a massive rebuilding job to be done. But with a rebuilding job, you need players to see that rebuilding job come to fruition. And if you're going to rebuild a junior team or an academy, you want a player or players to kind of to hang your hat on. And two players that spring to mind for me is the young lad Miley, who's been on the bench for Newcastle recently, who's come through the academy, and then someone like Rig, a young 15, 16-year-old, to then see himself through the academy. They can be our shining lights for the next 2 or 3 years. Now, we've been awful with our academy. You're absolutely right. 100% agree. I don't think anyone could disagree with that. But with Dan Ashworth at the helm, and with people coming in now, we're only a year into redeveloping the club, not the academy, but the club in general. I think those sorts of players are going to be the ones that are going to be, in my opinion, the ones that will hang our hats on in 2 or 3 years' time to say, yeah, they came through our academy. They might have started elsewhere, but they came through our academy and they came into our first team off the back of that. What better way? It's almost like a mini Chelsea model, because Chelsea did the same. Chelsea were nothing with their academy, and then all of a sudden they were buying and developing players from other clubs and then having them as their own, coming through the ranks. And it's going to take time, but what you want to see is progression, and a Rig coming through with a Miley coming through at the same time would be proof that there's still light at the end of the tunnel with that youth academy.
See, I think the thing with Chris Rigg is, and why they're actually including him in the squads and they're giving him appearances now, is because if you play over, I think it's over 20 games for the first team squad, your compensation, if he does leave on a free transfer, goes from hundreds of thousands to millions. So it's a different level of compensation. If you look into the case of Harvey Elliott with Liverpool, it details it out in that, where they are. Absolutely agree with you on Rigg, but we've made him an offer. The offer's on the table. And it's a big offer, for a kid of his age. But I think at the moment he's being advised to stay at Sunderland. I know he's a fan, and I know we could build a youth team around him and all this kind of stuff. But I think the advice at the moment is less pressure, and it's a better place to develop right now.
Is it 16? 16 he can sign his contract, is that right?
Yeah, 16, yeah.
So
he still hasn't signed it yet.
Yeah, he's still. Is he 16 now? I think he's still 15, isn't he?
No, I think he's 16. He's 16, I think.
It must have just turned. Yeah. If that's the case. But there's still time. There's still time. If he can see changes being made, I think he'll sign the deal. But
he's 15. 18th of June is his birthday.
Okay, so but if that's the case, that's perfect. He's got 6 months to see the club change from an academy point of view. And then he can make a decision in the summer because the season's finished. He can go, okay, which way am I going? Which way am I going to see my career? But yeah, no, I can see your point as well in staying at Sunderland, because he'll be exposed to more first team football.
I prefer to sign him in 2 years' time from Sunderland. You're going to pay that a little bit more, but it's great development. Like the Academy Elite, and you can be ignorant if you want because they're rivals or whichever like that. But the Academy Elite is a fantastic place for a player to develop. Why not use that? There's players. You have the likes of, you look at Hodgland there at Atlanta. He was offered to a few clubs in England, and they didn't take the opportunity. And they said, for his potential, it's worth taking the risk to watch him at another club and then go big on him. There's certain players that clubs leave move, or they let them stay in a position to see how they develop. And then if you're paying over the odds, somebody else is taking the risk for you. And I think that's something to factor in with young players as well. I think you see Newcastle look north of the border a lot. They're kind of expanding their scouting into Scotland and into Ireland as well. So you see a couple of players definitely, and they have a couple of players kind of highlighted from Scotland and stuff like that to come in. I have been told a few times that we have a deal done for a young Brazilian player and a young Norwegian player. Now, I don't know if this player is actually Norwegian or is he based in Norway, but their deals that are lined up, and they were meant to be triggered in January, but for some reason they didn't go through, and they'll happen in the summer. But I think they're definitely absolutely all in on Franca. They see him as another level. A lot of people talk about not getting a defensive midfielder in January. they thought they were nailed on for Santos, you know, and then they thought they were, it was a Peroni that went to Man City, you know, they thought they were absolutely convinced of getting him, and both deals broke down fairly late from. What you have to remember is, if we swing and miss, right, it has huge implications for us. At this moment in time, you know, we're about the 95% mark of our capacity with wages. You know, wages to turnover are probably about 90 to 95%. You have Bruno who's signing a new contract, Joeldon who's signing a new contract, Sean Longstaff who's signing a new contract. You know, Miguel Almiron is up for a new contract. They're all they're contracts with extensions as well, which will happen over the next couple of months. You know, all these things are going to add to the wage bill. Our wage bill could nearly be level, you know, income versus ratio. You know, so you're talking, we could nearly be at 100% of our capacity. That's why I think if Dubravka didn't come back in January, I think Shelby might have stayed, because we could have probably facilitated his wages for the rest of the season. You know, our wage bill is maxed out. You know, it's on that point as well. Like, you know, they looked at the likes of Kefren Thuram and Ugarte there at Lisbon. The problem is that Chelsea absolutely ruined the transfer market for defensive midfield in January. You know, like, we made inquiries in December, and the ballpark figure for Thuram and Ugarte was in around the 25 to 30 million mark. Add-ons obviously take it up past that. Then you had Chelsea who went in on Fernandes, and when they thought they were losing out on him, they were touching base with Lisbon and Nice, saying, look, we're keeping him an eye on him there as a fallback if this deal doesn't go through. Look, we'll look at him. So all of a sudden that 25 million became 50 million. And anyway, clubs holding out, waiting for Chelsea to spend stupid money. So they absolutely gridlocked the market. You know, and Newcastle couldn't invest in a number 6 in January. People will say that, oh, Winston McKennie went on loan, but his attitude is meant to be absolutely stinking. There's a reason why he went from Juventus to Leeds, you know, and no other big clubs went from. His reputation as well, his star has dropped massively, you know, and that's why Newcastle weren't tempted to invest in him. Should they have got a number 6 in January? Was it needed? Absolutely. Do I understand why not? I absolutely do. You know, was letting Shelby go a bad thing? Maybe, you know, but in 3 years' time, and if we're sitting here having a conversation, nobody will remember that January when we sold Shelby. We'd be thinking we're top 3 in the Premier League and we're there to stay. You know, granted, there's a chance of getting top 4 now, you know, and it would be a huge achievement, but is it worth a swing and a miss? You know, because if we swing and miss, and if they overinvested, and if we missed out in European football totally, we're tied to Castore for next season. Financially, we are crippled. Right? You can talk about, that's FFP, that's just the basic standards. The white paper is out tomorrow, and the new financial football regulator and stuff like that. Nobody knows the implications that that's going to have. But for us, a swing and a miss in January, right, was a way bigger risk than actually investing and hopefully getting top 4. Jimmy, that's how I've seen it, and that's what's being explained to me.
Do you not think that the Castore deal will be cancelled early?
I've been sent on copies. I'll dig through the meshes and stuff like that, and if I can find them out there, I'll send them on. But I've actually been sent the mock-up of what the jerseys they've sent into Newcastle, what they're making next year. So for Castore, there is no get-out clause. So the club could offer 100 million, and they could say no. Do you get me? So will it happen? They're working on it to get rid of it. But Castore, was it about a month or 6 weeks ago, they handed in their jersey designs for next season, wait and sign off, and they're releasing the jersey on the day of the Sam Fender concert. That's what Castore's plans are. So Castore are all in, and they're going to be our sponsor next season.
Sorry, Pete. I was going to say, it's what I wanted about the shirt was about. I remember one of the shirts shows we had on with Kieran Maguire. He actually mentioned that something to do with FFP. If you actually cancel an ongoing deal already, it can actually have a negative effect on your FFP. So that's also, it's something that you have. It might, yes, the deal that Castor's not actually got is great compared to what it could do with Adidas, etc. But if you cancel an agreement, it can actually have a knock-on effect for your FFP for those 3-year period going forward. So that's why they have to try and maneuver really closely around it and stuff like that. I think what they'll probably do is, I think you'll probably see this summer, you'll probably see a shirt sponsor potentially, which will obviously increase the commercial money coming in, income there. And then the new deal will come for the off the kit supplier the following year. So it'll increase our FFP capability over the next 2 years that way as well. And hopefully, obviously, with the way things are going on the pitch as well, and then, it looks like there's going to be European competition of some sort. That income's going to come through from, gate receipts. You've got obviously more turnover coming in from like match days, as in, like the refreshments and all that sort of stuff. And, it just goes, all these extra little things add up to the FFP increasing. So I think that what you'll say is, I think we will be stuck with Castor for next year, but I think you'll probably see a new shirt sponsor instead.
But I think we'll see a few sponsorships in the summer.
Yeah.
They put them on ice last summer because what it is that when you're going to sponsor a club like that, right? So there's an algorithm of how they do it now. MDD, this one was explained to me there a couple of months back, and it's basically like, they take into account fans, online clicks, how many live games you have, all this kind of stuff. It's all taken into account. They run an algorithm, and that's how they sponsor you, and that's how they come up with the figure. They have to provide that to the Premier League now for the Premier League to sign off on it. If they had done that last summer, and if they tied themselves into a 3-year contract, right, versus what they would have gotten this summer, you're talking tens of millions of difference.
Yeah.
And that's why they held out. They could have tied into another 3 sponsors last summer that would have given us probably a better summer window and a better January transfer window, but it would have hindered us for the 2 years forward. And that's why I say you don't deviate from a 5-year plan, for small wins. And that's why they waited. They waited until this summer because they were confident of getting a top 8 finish and a cup run, and then you're sponsoring a total different animal. And that's what it will be in the summer. You're talking like STC will come in, Saudi Air will come in, and they'll probably have another couple of sponsors that will piggyback on the back of that. You're talking maybe a stand renaming or a training ground renaming, all these kind of things.
Trading kits getting sponsored, like you see
All
Man
these
United.
things, yeah.
There's loads
Absolutely.
of possibilities.
Yeah, and it's like you're running the algorithm this year of a Newcastle team that probably have been live on Sky every second week. I think we only have one game that's not live until the end of the season. You're
Southampton game.
Top 6 team. Yeah, we're going to be a top 6 team, and we're going to be Carabao Cup winners. So sponsoring that is totally different to sponsoring a team that had a good run and stayed out of relegation battle last season. So patience. I understand why people will look at it and they say, "Oh, the squad was light, and why let Shelby go?" You're talking 120 million off the wages and 12 million into the bank. If Shelby played another 2 more games, that's a huge wage output for the rest of the season. And going into next year, would somebody take him off their hands for that fee, and will they pay those wages?
I don't think that one of the things that I know, obviously me and Pete talked about it in depth. We were a bit surprised that they still didn't pull the trigger potentially on a loan transfer for 6 months to tie it over as an extra break. Obviously, using Sabitzer again, for example, obviously Ericsson went down out for this rest of the season on the transfer deadline day, and they literally pulled the trigger straight away on someone. Did Newcastle not even think about it? Obviously, you might know who people.
Sabitzer would have been our highest, but he would have been our highest wage earner if we had signed him. For example,
I wasn't saying
Sander Borge. They looked at it, but they wanted to trigger it was a 25 million. They wanted to trigger it after 5 games or something like that. And do you want to be tied down with a player that's just a progression or a step? As I said to people, do you want to be signing Sander Borge now in January and restricting yourself for going for a Declan Rice in the summer? Because that's what it is, and that's why you have to be patient.
Are we really going to be going for Declan Rice?
If we get Champions League, yeah.
Come on.
I'm telling you now, right? And
Declan Rice is going to cost anywhere between 80 and 100 million. Right. I don't care what anybody says. So are we really going to be looking to pay that sort of money for one player?
Right.
He's not going for anything cheaper, in my opinion.
Right. This summer we're a different.
Here we go. Big screen for this, Sean.
Okay. Tell us why you think we're in a different dynamic this summer. Then
you can tie this question as well on it, because obviously it's all going forward for obviously top 4 and stuff like that. So,
hi. This feels like an Anchorman moment or something, doesn't it?
feel free to use the whiteboard behind you.
No, so it's just basically sponsorship. Sponsorship gives us a totally new revenue, and he will let go a couple of the, these core squad members, like the likes of Lascelles and stuff like that. They will go off the book. So it's not about money spent, it's about wage capacity. And as soon as they can increase the wage capacity, we have money to spend. right? A club can be in debt. We can be in debt for €1 billion. Once we're facilitating that debt, it doesn't matter. The problem is wages, plain and simple. You know, if you're paying, say, 100 million for Declan Rice, his wages might only be 150 grand. You know, Jimmy, and that's how they do it. And you pay this over what, 5 years or 6 years or whichever, you know. So
The contract.
like from Napoli, Cajasvela or whatever, and now you're going to try and say his name. We were absolutely looking at him, you know, and
Love
we
him.
will pay the fee for him if he wants to come to Newcastle. If we get Champions League football, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with him and Rice. You know, for me, I think Rice has restrictions, because if Rice is playing through the middle and if he's playing as a restricted 6, fantastic. If you get Rice into the wide areas, he's not as good. It's his big letdown with England, and you see it later on in the West Ham game when we played him as well. If you can move Rice out of the centre, he's not the same player. For me, if I'm looking at it, I'm thinking I'd get in probably Ugarte and I'd get in James Maddison for the same price. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's a huge drop off in what the price is in the summer, you know, you have Declan Rice in the last 2 years of his contract as well next summer, so they will look to sell him. You know, and if they're relegated, it's a total different ballgame. Or even Calvin Phillips. You know, you get Calvin Phillips and James Maddison in.
Rice has got an opportunity for an extension.
He does, doesn't he? Actually, yeah.
Got a year trigger in the summer.
But the thing is, like, even Calvin Phillips and Maddison, you know, and if Maddison doesn't come in, is Strasbourg, Daz's man there from Leipzig. You know, he's the backup them. You know, but the remit really for the summer transfer window is he wants big athletic players, and I think Eddie Howe's I wouldn't say a stranglehold, but Eddie Howe's influence on the transfers will dilute a little bit because it's kind of log jamming a couple of things, and there's a couple of deals being worked on and stuff that he's after pulling the plug on himself. You know, he doesn't want too many egos too soon because it's a hard working side. But for the progression where we're going to have to bring in a couple of variables that we don't really know that well and see how it works out from. You know, so you will see us, like, our financial outlay in this summer will be huge. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we went ahead of our transfer record twice. You know, you have to remember we paid 67.5 million for Isaac.
Yeah.
You know, to me that's a 22-year-old striker.
All of those players that have just been said in the chat. So you've got KK, you've got Diaby, you've got Bellingham, you've got Rice. All of those players are players that can play within an Eddie Howe system. They've got the ability. They know how to play an Eddie Howe system. They show it for their current teams. So I've not got an issue with that. For me, it's do we spend the level of money that would get KK out of Napoli? Do we spend the sort of money that would get Rice out of West Ham? And you know what West Ham are like. They didn't want us to get the takeover anyway. They don't like us right now because we are literally doing what they were doing the last 2 years. Do they not slap an extra 20 million on our price tag just because it's Newcastle?
But again,
it's one of them. Because let's face it, West Ham expect to be where we are next season, even regardless of their season right now. They've invested the money with the likes of Paqueta, 170 odd million in the summer, spent more since, 200 plus million they've spent this summer. They would expect to be where we are next season. So will they want to sell us their key asset to make us an even better prospect of European football to stop them being that team next season?
See, you have to look at it this way, right? PIF will only be this patient for so long, you know, and they'll only kind of abide by the rules for so long, you know. With Isaac, our current owners, like the ownership that's in place at the moment, you know, Ashworth and stuff like that, they didn't want to go near Isaac for that money, and PIF were like, do something, get it done, get him in, and they said 67.5 million. Here's the change, you know. with Anthony Gordon, the same thing, you know. There was haggling over a fee, and it was like, it's no coincidence that the owners were in, was it Riyadh they were in, and 24 hours later the deal was done. It was a quick phone call, what you want, yeah, there you go, let's get the deal done. You know, you're going to see a lot more of that, and you're going to see a lot more aggression in the transfer market going forward. You know, and in the summer, if you're paying 67.5 million for a striker who's after his worst season in Spain, Are you going to pay 80 million for Declan Rice, who's been renowned as probably the best defensive midfielder, one of the best defensive midfielders in the world at the moment? Why not?
There's levels though. Like we have, I see people in the chat. So we have to be getting Champions League to go after this type of player. We have to be in the next European competition to be in this, and so on and so forth. Like if it all depends on our league position as well.
I think it's what Tom asked, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So if we do finish top 4, it's going to open a different sort of bracket for the player qualities and stuff like that and type.
The plan won't change, and let's be honest with you, they want players that are going to buy into the project. So they will aim for players that want to play in the Champions League, and we will tell them, you give us a year and you'll get us into the Champions League. And that's the proposition that you have for players. They can see like where the club is going. Like there's a like Manchester United aren't going to go for Declan Rice in the summer. They have Casemiro. You have Chelsea, they've just signed Enzo Fernandez, and you had Todd Buey, who thought that they automatically qualify for Champions League every year. So if they don't get Champions League, that's them out of the equation.
That's the Super League, you think?
You have, my opinion, they'll probably look at between Rice as in their top level targets. I'd say you're probably Rice and Moises Caicedo at Brighton. And then working back from that, you have your like Ugarte and Thuram that they'll probably look at. But they will bring in 2 into that midfield 3 in the summer. Jimmy, and it's like we can dream, like I rule nothing out. From everything that I'm hearing.
Arsenal linked with him, Rice.
Yeah, but if Arsenal take Rice or Moises Caicedo, that opens the door to us to sign one of them.
Yeah.
How about Liverpool?
Jimmy, if Liverpool don't get Champions League, financially they're screwed. They won't have the financial capability to go for Rice. Jimmy, like
everyone keeps saying that they're going to go. Bellingham's going to go. But he won't go if they're doing that Champions League.
It's because him and his dad are big Liverpool fans. That it was a done deal earlier on in the season before the World Cup because, like you said, everyone thinks that Liverpool are going to get Champions League football. But it's why someone put in the chat earlier, like, are we worried because Eddie Howe's team didn't perform in a must-win game against Liverpool at St James's Park? It wasn't must-win for us. It was a must-win for Liverpool.
That game was an anomaly, though. Like if you watch that game back and if you actually cut out that period of 10 minutes, like we dominated with 10 men. We dominated until they scored the first goal. Like
half an hour of craziness there.
What me and Pete said on Sunday night. It was literally the first 10 minutes we were all over them. Then that 15-minute spell, the 2 goals and the sending off, and then afterwards it was all Newcastle again.
On another day, we beat them 3-4-0.
Absolutely, I think even with 11 men, we probably come back and beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Carragher said that yesterday. If anyone's watched Carragher, he does these Champions League on another channel. It might be BN Sports or something like that. And he was talking about obviously the demise of Liverpool against Real Madrid, and he actually refers back to he says Newcastle for long parts were the better team, created the better chances, and actually on another day, 11 against 11, Newcastle get it back to at least 2-2. He said that himself.
It's funny, like, because one of my mates there, he's a massive Liverpool fan, like, and he loves ripping the piss on me about all things Newcastle. And after the game, it was about a half an hour later, I was like, I haven't heard anything from him. Is he still alive? Like, so I texted him. I was like, have you got anything to say? And he was like, nah, we were terrible. He goes, because I was kind of watching it, and the result papered over the cracks. We're in big trouble.
Yeah.
In contrast, I got loads of abuse from my Liverpool friends.
I'm delighted.
Wait. You know why I put your big screen there? Because I'm just thinking what I can write for the next poster on that board behind you, Sean.
I'm never coming back on again.
Snapshot that.
That's gonna be look. I personally can't see it, but look, anything's possible. There's a long time between now and the end of the season. We could finish anywhere. We could quite easily finish top 4. And Liverpool, like you said, and Chelsea's, and all those teams could fall off. We don't quite know. Like even when we were talking as a group, even when you were on back in January, Sean, I don't think, even though we talked about it back then, I don't think anyone knew it was a definite possibility that we'd be sitting here at the beginning of the season with Alexander Isak in our team.
No,
although we
absolutely
knew it,
not.
although we knew it was a possibility, and you talked about it. We even spoke about it in the summer before it was even news about Alexander Isak. Nobody thought that was going to be a possibility, that we could take Alexander Isak from Real Sociedad.
We spoke about it in January 1st, and I got slated about it for months, saying that absolutely no way would he come near us. And I think, in around the week that they build up to signing him, I probably sent you a couple of messages, Pete, just to say, look, I'm getting. There was a lot of rumblings going on there, and what it was is that there was talk of Munich and Barcelona actually kind of showing interest in him and stuff, and we jumped at it. We grabbed him.
He was on the list to make a move if there was movement. Yeah, we did do a bit of in-depth discussion with Surma Hunter. We were kind of throwing a few different names at her at the time.
That's where it was on CBS. Galasso, which is where Ben Jacobs, friend of the channel, reports from as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Nick. But yeah, interesting. Alan Thompson, he disagrees. He says he thinks Liverpool were far better than us. They were toying with in the second half. Don't be blinded by the black and white eyes. It's an interesting take. I know a lot of Newcastle fans that think that we created the better chances. We created some good chances. I do agree. Late on, Liverpool had chances to wrap it up, and they didn't. But
you're going to get that against 10 men, though.
Yeah, of course. That's also a very, very good.
I watched the game and like afterwards I was like, why am I not disappointed after losing 2-0? So look, it's in the past now. I just disappointed we won't get a chance to rectify it against them this season. But look, on to Sunday.
Maybe I'll throw up the league table as well, Sean. But where do you think we're going to finish?
1 second. 1 second.
No problem. Everyone's leaving.
I'll be back. Don't worry.
No, absolutely. Where do you think we'll finish in the league, Sean? As I bring up the league table here first. Boom. There you go. Sitting in 5th with Spurs, haven't played a game more, having 1 point more, but we have a better goal difference. I think top 3 is out of reach. I think we're fighting from 4th downwards. I
think it's hard to say. I think Sunday's going to be the catalyst for the rest of our season.
The momentum there.
I think if we win that, I think we'll finish top 4. But I don't know. I can see us finishing 5th. I just think that's where we're going to land. But I don't think Spurs or Liverpool have the consistency to take us out of the top 4 then either. I think we have a dodgy. We have United. We have Man City away, and after that, our running is kind of okay. We've played Arsenal away, we've played Liverpool away, we've played Manchester United away. We have Man City away. We played Spurs away. When you look at that, the top half of the table there, we've played Fulham away. We've played Brighton away.
Yeah.
We've actually played the best part of the top half of the table away already. So our sticky matches will come home. Jimmy, the problem for Newcastle now is that, I think he was kind of shy on integrating Gordon into the system. We'll have Gordon and Isaac now who are going to be full tilt at it as well. It's kind of unlocking that lower block is going to be key.
Yeah, and we'll have. You don't rule out ASM as well. We're playing for his Newcastle career,
I don't think
he wants to hang around.
I don't think it's left. To be honest with you, I don't think, regardless of what he does, I think he's gone in the summer.
And just throwing back, so you think if you were to guess, you're guessing that we'd finish 5th, but we'd still go after and try and potentially get a Declan Rice.
That's what the aim is. But will they get him? Probably not. I'm very uncomfortable with paying 80 million for Declan Rice because I don't think he's worth it. So I prefer to look elsewhere.
Still bitter where you left it.
No, I'm actually not. It's not even that. I just don't think he's. I think there's better players and there's more dynamic players there than Declan Rice. That's my take on it, lads. I'm gonna have to go. It's been a pleasure. Are we doing a Sunday night celebration? Are we?
We can be doing anything.
Monday, so it might have to be Monday for me.
Yeah, lads, look after yourselves. I have to pop off, and a pleasure as always. We do it again. Just give me a little bit of notice that it's definitely happening this time, Pete.
Reciprocate that as well.
Go back to messages, check, and I said it's penciled in, meaning it's done. It's done. It's
But-
there.
Before you leave, Sean, prediction is out for the score.
1-0 Newcastle.
1-0 Newcastle.
Scorer.
Oh,
I'm going to stick with Sven Botman for now.
Okay.
Good luck, lads. Enjoy it. Fingers
cheers,
crossed.
Sean. Take care. Mind yourself.
Top man.
Cowboy out.
Great time, Sean, as always.
Yeah, always good crack at Sean. And yeah, interesting take there, especially on you just missed that last bit that he has us down as potentially finishing fifth and still going after the likes of Declan Rice. I think we have to be in Champions League to have any chance, and then we'll win a massive battle in, of course, with him and a few more.
It's been well documented, and obviously I get to be in a chat with Lawler, so I get to hear all the rest of that over and over again. Whilst the rest of them wind him up, by the way, they love to wind him up. But yeah, the one thing that that it seems to be talked about from a West Ham perspective that he's only leaving for Champions League football. So if he does leave this summer, and I think we alluded to it when we're talking about Rice, in that he actually has a year's trigger extension this summer. So even though we'll have a year's left at the end of this season, they can trigger it for another year. So we'll have effectively, 2 years left. So
that's where they get the best value for him, though.
Yeah, and that'll be it. So for me, I think he'll only leave this summer for Champions League football. I don't personally see him coming to Newcastle because I don't see us paying anywhere between 80 to 100 million for a player. And it goes back to what Dan Ashworth said when he was talking. I think he was talking to Sky about all things Newcastle. And he was saying, if we're signing 80 to 100 million pound players, then I'm not doing my job right, because that's not what he's been built on. I don't expect him to be buying 3-4 million pound players constantly and consistently. I expect him to be buying or highlighting players of a bigger financial ilk. Yeah. But for me, I don't see it. I don't see it. And look, I know you more than anyone, but we've all seen KK and we know how good he is. He's tearing it up in Italy time and time again. He's
a pipe dream, though, for him to come into Newcastle.
He's a generational player, but he's going to cost.
Oh, he's going to cost,
400 million, because it's the same for Osimhen. Osimhen won't leave for anything, in my opinion, close to 80 to 100 million, because they don't have any need to sell him. Napoli are God knows how many points clear in Serie A. They're going to win the league, barring an absolute meltdown. And for me, they don't need to sell those type of players. So if you're going to prize them away, they're going to need to go for big money. And I just don't see Newcastle spending the money to get those type of players. Adam Bailey just talked about Seko for foreign. We haven't talked about him for a while. But a player like him, in my opinion, can come in and do what Declan Rice does in the Premier League right now. He's prim and proper. He's ready for it. Lee's talked about him before. I've seen him on numerous occasions. We all have. You could spend 30 million on him now. He's 26 years old. You could get 4, 5, 6 years out of him of playing that quality, intense football in that number 6 position, and you're not spending that sort of money. And this is why I say there are a pool of players. I love Maddison, but I know there's probably 4 or 5 other players out there that Newcastle could get that could come in and do exactly the same job as Maddison. But it's about finances. It's about how much we're going to spend on those players.
I just think that no one knows if we got Champions League, all bets are off for everybody. I think it's just we don't know what's going to happen. So we just have to look at. Let's get enjoy and get over the League Cup final on Sunday first. Then we'll be back into, because there's no point even talking about some of these players if our league form continues to drop.
It's so fantasy football does at the minute.
Yeah, it is. I might as well go back to playing my 2020 football manager if that's the case, But look at that. Well, great to have Sean on, get his opinion and another voice on the final as well, and a bit of what lies ahead for the summer first. All that talk. Fully Loaded Transfer Show back twice a day in the summer. Yeah, maybe we'll let people know. I'm going to give a shout out to the sponsors as well. And maybe if there's any remaining questions, we'll touch on them. But yeah, what's happening? What's remaining in our week of build up? Pete, tell us what's happening on Friday, 7:30.
Yeah, really excited to get Sai TV. I did him a disservice. I said, "Oh, he's got 50,000 subscribers on his channel. He's actually got 60, just turned over 60,000." So yeah, I apologise to him for that. But Sai TV, really looking forward to coming on to our channel. He has watched a number of bits that we've done on the channel before to talk all things cup final. I'm sure he won't hold back on his opinions of what he thinks is going to happen. He's been well documented in talking up Man United very highly. So yeah, we're going to get down to it, and we're going to talk all things cup final and get his opinions on not just Newcastle but Man United and how he sees the game unfolding. So yeah, excited to get him on. So make sure you tune in. That's Friday at 7:30. We're going to kick off and get right into it all.
And forget about Saeed coming on. The big news there is I will be making my away days debut. It's never happened
Not
before.
for the want of trying, Daz.
No, I did go on to the Chelsea one with you, but I never.
That was the opposite one.
Yeah, I know. Hey, but the problem is, I just cause a fight. I just cause a war. I can't trust myself to say something stupid and they'll never come back on the show again. But maybe that's quality YouTube. I don't know. But yeah, I'll come on away list at some point, and we're going to do a members draw. So Chris has all the details on that. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't not a member already, or you were a member in the past, just check that you're still a member. So that is coming up on Friday. Maybe I'll just give a shout out to the sponsors, and Richie, if there's any other questions, we can tackle them then. So shout out first to, and I know Russ is in the chat, to the radiatorshed.com, and I was chatting to Russ today. There we put Pete in jail for a change, and of course the lovely radiators, the lovely different colors that Russ has available. And you know at this stage where to go to check radiatorshed.com and what Russ does, and we will be having some new pictures from Russ as well. Not that the other ones weren't bad, but again, they're doing up showrooms, so when he has those all completed, he's going to share the pictures with us. And of course the install works as well, Russ's other company, and he's getting us pictures for that, so look forward to that. And of course, if you need that, then you know where to contact. Also, shout out to Bathroom Design Co. H2O. So shout out to Martin there, and the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and bathroom wear. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. As if I knew where that was. I have no idea. Right, but if we go visit when we're over in April. A loaded trip. We've got a busy agenda.
It's only a big there's a retail park there, which is all right, and then it's mainly just all businesses, mate. Literally.
Yeah.
But it obviously. We were about to say we better keep Pete away from there, actually, because we already know that Pete's missus likes to look at these.
Rich, I was just about to say, it's all right you saying that, but if we're bringing the Wiservers, that's the one place they're going to want to be. So actually, you guys put the address on.
We're booked in. We're booked in now.
Written down. Thanks for that.
So we have the match, and we have a visit to our sponsors on our loaded trip. We're not meeting anyone in the pub now, right? But yeah, that's a shout out to our sponsors. But yeah, so we're going to be back on Friday for away days. Richie, any of the last questions or anything else you want to cover before we shut down?
Yeah, there's a couple of little ones we could probably take off. Just to clear up the fact about the Matty ticket that we set out for £2,400. Obviously, someone else actually put it in the chat what I've mentioned before, and obviously someone had started while I was going to the comments. Said, to be fair to Matty, it's been sorted out by one of his sponsors. They've basically just paid for it, and then they won't be paying him anymore for future sponsorship. So it's not really a fan selling it on. I did see I had actually read it with the sponsor had paid for it, and obviously thanks for Chris UK there for clearing that up as well. It wasn't like someone had ripped them off. I don't know how the ticket came about, but obviously the sponsors agreed to pay for it, so that's a little bit something different on that one.
That wasn't a slant on Matty at all.
No. There's no
he's done what he needed to do to get to the cup final. It was more shock and surprise at the price.
Yeah,
actually, from what you've said, Richie, on from that comment, it makes sense. And actually, if the sponsor are going to pay it, fair enough. All I'll just say is, Russ, you got 5 of us. Just say. I'm joking.
Champions League final, Russ. You know when it happens.
You do know what's going to happen now, don't you, Pete? He's going to turn and say, "Yes, lads, I'll get you 5 tickets, right? But I expect you and the missus to be there in April because of the showroom."
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Take your pick. Take your pick, please.
To be fair, I'd love any of them. Those bathrooms are outstanding. I've got to be honest.
And radiators. You're getting radiators as well. It's a package deal here you're getting.
Yeah, we need them. Black and white, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Right, there's 3 little points that I think are worth discussing. We've got about 15 minutes to cover at tops there. So, obviously, Pete, I know you briefly touched on this topic on the 12th man earlier on, but Peter Guy was just saying he wants to know what the crack is with Ryan Fraser, because obviously he's been set down in the under-23s. Has anybody heard anything about why? Is it just literally down to his attitude again, or what?
I was just assuming. Go on, Dash. Go on.
I was just going to say, I just read the Hopi article. That's the only thing I've seen on it. And I think what you're going to say, Pete, you assume it's something linked to that, because Eddie Howe wouldn't drop him down there for no reason. He'd be potentially on the bench for us. Or he would be on the bench for us for the cup final if it was all rosy there with Eddie Howe. So there's something stinks.
Did anyone see it being Eddie Howe retribution on him for what he did to him at Bournemouth?
People are going to see it like that.
That's a Chris question. A spaceship Chris question.
Yeah,
I do think that's what you've said is right. Is it if you we've put up the tactics board a number of times and we've looked not just at the start of the 11 but the subs. Right, you'd put Richie. You put Ryan Fraser in that category to come off the bench and affect the game in a cup final or any game. And the fact that he's not, and the fact that we've got a very light squad at the moment, you would take any senior player as you could. He's 27 years old. You would expect him to be in and around things. The fact that he's fit in training, and Eddie Howe's not deviated from that. When he was asked a question a couple of weeks ago about Ryan Fraser, he said he's training, he's fit, there's no issues. So that clearly suggests that there's a problem with Ryan Fraser and not the club. So therefore, we talked about it on deadline day when we were doing the match day live, and there was genuine links that he was going to go to Hull, and that never materialised. And whether he's rejected that and he's threw up a bit of a strop, that's fine. But again, it just proves Eddie Howe's ability to stamp his authority, no matter whether he likes the player or knows the player. He is not going to let anyone just kind of manipulate the situation. And you don't want that type of negativity going into a cup final. So he's gone, you know what? If you're not going to toe the line, get in the 21s. That's where you need to be. Simple as. And you know what? Fair play. He'll bring in a young player to take his position and probably give him an opportunity than he would play someone like an experienced Ryan Fraser and cause an unrest in the squad of players. So it's what a good manager does.
Yeah. It is kind of unusual though that this information comes out right before the cup final. You imagine it. Imagine when it taking place next week when it's we're back to business in the league, and it's getting it's all because it's all meant to be kind of good atmosphere, good vibes and stuff leading up to.
I think it's a good time to get out, because if the worst was to happen and Newcastle lost next week, and then that news comes out again, it's squad going into the game, depending obviously that. I think he's put it out there now, so it's out in the open, so that they can't be blamed if there's a negative result on Sunday, and obviously if there's a positive result, it can say it hasn't affected the camp going into the game either. So I think it's probably a good little tactical move, really, to have it released before rather than after, because obviously you lose at Liverpool. Obviously, yes, the team was good. Obviously, 10 men, stuff like that. And obviously, second loss of the season. And if we were, the worst was to happen, we lost the cup final. And then there's another that's like 3 negative things out regards the club. So perhaps it is a good one to get out now. And then obviously, whatever happens on Sunday happens.
Because it kind of goes under the carpet as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
In one way, yeah.
Craig Hope's got a lot of stick from it. If you look at the comments underneath his report of the article, there's a lot of Newcastle fans saying, why are you posting negativity so close to the final, blah 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 blah. But what Richie said is a genuine point. Get it out in the open early. It can then not be used as an excuse later on. With Eddie Howe and Newcastle, they're a club at the moment that like to kind of lay the cards out and just let you know how it is from a reality point of view. And I respect that 110%. So you can imagine that he's not going to be part of the squad. You can imagine he's not going to travel. So then at least when you look at the squad available, why he's not there. Simple.
I think the other thing as well with the fact that Ryan Fraser is, are any of the fans actually surprised going off his past history? If it had been another player that had been put in the 23, someone who you hadn't expected, say, for example, there's so much being going on about Jamal Lascelles, Matt Ritchie, and Jacob Murphy, as Sean mentioned earlier on. They've got a fantastic attitude in and around. And yes, they haven't been playing this season as much as they have been in previous seasons. But if one of those was moving into the 23s, you'd probably think that perhaps there's something a little bit more going on there to it. But with Ryan Fraser, it's him, it's his character, full stop. And then, obviously, I know Peter's alluded to before, and about Eric Ten Hag got rid of Ronaldo, which was having a negative effect on the club. If Ryan Fraser, even the slightest little bit, Eddie Howe was exactly the same. 2 clubs going in the right direction, don't need anything dragging them back down again. And I know, obviously, Ryan Fraser's not the same level as Ronaldo by any shape or means. But the thing is, though, he can still have wise though, whether he's got the same playing ability or not. He can still have a negative effect on the squad, because he's going to have friends within that squad. He's been with at Bournemouth, and obviously with Matt Ritchie when I was closer there, Wilson, and he might even some of the staff in the coaching staff. He might know. If he plants seeds and stuff like that, they can get and affect the rest of the work and ability of the squad as well. So, I'm not surprised by when it was announced, to be fair, because obviously he hasn't been playing either. So,
I'll just add on there, Keaty's, but Craig No Hope is quite a negative reporter. His glass is always half empty. I do watch his shows, and he's a good balance. But I mean, Craig Hope, he's a good reporter. You've got to remember.
Excellent.
You're right, Daz. He's an excellent reporter on all things Newcastle. He has been trusted, clearly, to hold a lot of information and get a lot of information out regarding Newcastle first compared to any other journalist. And there's a reason for that. The club clearly trust him with the information that he's being given because of the amount of exclusives that he gets given. But you've got to remember, we all have to remember here, with every journalist that we get on, whether it's Jordan Cronin, whether it's Dom Skur, whether it's whoever it is, the Chronicle boys that were on last night, doesn't matter. They have to report from a neutral basis. Like you hear them talk about it all the time. Jordan
talked about it with us after the show the other day.
Yeah, Pete Graves, Keith Downey, all these guys that come onto the show, even Graham Bailey, who's a Borough fan but reports on Newcastle. That's enough of that. But with all of that, it's a case of they have to stay neutral. And although a lot of those guys, if not all of them, support Newcastle United and love the club and want the best, absolute best for the club, they have to report neutrally. And sometimes they have to put stuff out there because, for example, Craig Hope, if he'd have not put that story out today, could have come from another journalist tomorrow, and from his position, he's missed a big story. And it's
not doing his job then either.
So
it's not just that though, Pete. There's the fact that obviously what Katie said about the fact that he's quite a negative report. It could be that the fact that the club actually trust him to release it in a way where it's a negative one, but it's not going to come across negative on the club as such. Because you know, one of the things, obviously, and for anyone who watched the show last night, obviously, they'll notice we discussed this because at the live event, and I went to, obviously, where I met Andrew in our area a couple of weeks ago, Luke Edwards was there as well. And Luke Edwards actually got asked the question about, and he answered it that, look, we still get the negative stories, you know, what's going on in the club, but obviously, we can obviously choose to portray it a certain way if we want to. We can choose to ignore it. And the fact is, the club is in such a good state now. Yes, we still hear it, but it might not be worth reporting on anymore. Yeah. You know, it's not a story like it used to be under the Mike Ashley era, where there was always, you know, stories coming out by players. We know it's a closed-knit shop now. But the thing is, though, negative stories will still come out. It's just the amplitude of how many are going to come out. You know, if there was nothing coming out at all, would you be even more surprised?
It goes back to the point. What negative stories have come out this season, apart from the Ryan Fraser situation? There haven't been any, and there's clearly a reason for that. But you're absolutely right. It's the way in which they come out, and actually, it's not really news right now. A negative story coming out. Ryan Fraser's is, but the one thing that you're looking at, and what we're looking at just now in the last 5 minutes talking about it, we're looking at this situation, pointing the finger at Ryan Fraser, not the club.
Yeah, and we've kept this to the end of the show as well, because we're all about the positivity ourselves. You know, we don't need it to base a whole show on it. In the past, that would be a whole show, because there was so little happening with Newcastle. And we look forward to having Craig Hope on next week when we send him this clip and just how we bigged you up, Craig. So hopefully we'll see you.
He'll be on soon. There's no doubt about it. He owes us, because like the chatters won't know this, but you boys know it because I talked to you. Is that like he's been down to come and join us at least 2 or 3 times over the last year, and
back in the Bruce era, he was down. I'm a poster.
Maybe more than that, yeah. But like he's been down, but for obviously various different reasons, he's not been able to join. He was actually potentially going to be joining us this week, but then something's come up and he's not been able to. But he has said, and I've said it to you boys, he owes us one. So he will be on Loaded Bag NUFC at some point to talk Newcastle.
We'll go negative. We'll go negative, Craig, and you don't want us to go negative.
Right.
And then we'll never come on again.
We go the dark side.
Right. 2 quick topics, then we'll round it off. This one off Steve Warnock. He says that he feels we've still got a big call to make on Mickey this summer, mainly because he's so reliant on that left foot that it slows us down a lot on the right, often too much, and then there's no early balls in. Quickly, what do you reckon on that, lads?
Go on, lads.
Sorry,
you answer this one?
I have to read this now for a second. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening, Richie.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, he will stay. In my opinion, he will stay at the club beyond this summer. Purely because we play European football.
I think Miggy stays. And it'd be good to have another option as well. Just to our squad is going to get bigger, no matter what, Champions League or no Champions League. We'll be in some kind of European competition. We need different options to mix it up. But yeah, I'd definitely keep Miggy unless we get some kind of massive offer. Yeah.
If we get 30 million, he goes.
We'll do all that in squad game. Maybe we'll add another element to the squad game. We always add another feature, but we'll add it. How much are you selling for? It's like the Price is Right. The Price is Right edition. How about that?
Oh my God.
That's how we spot ideas here.
Well. Are you going to get the music as well?
I'll have the music. Don't worry about that. We'll sort it out.
Yeah, then we'll have a hit tomorrow on YouTube. They'll be took straight down.
We'll get a remix. We get the remix version.
I think what we've got to just a quick answer to this question as well. My point of view is we've got to remember that players like Mickey are going to, like next season, the season before, the season after that, are going to be the people who are going to be the likes of people like Jacob Murphy are now, and what Matt Ritchie are in a few years. If your weakest player in your squad is Miguel Almiron, it shows that the club's in a fantastic place. Really, the players that are ahead of him must be one hell of a quality addition that's going to push him down that far. But that's the direction we're going now, and he will be moved on at some point. He's late 20s now as well, so it's not like he's going to have a long career with Newcastle anyway. He may only have like 2 years left, as I've just mentioned, so that's something to bear in mind as well. And final question just before we round off, and it's off our friend Michael Pomar, and he says, question for all of us. Are we really fighting with the likes of Fulham, Brighton, Brentford for Europe, rather than Man U, Spuds, Chelsea and Liverpool for Champions League?
I think we're fighting with both, to tell you the truth. But we're not fighting with I can't remember when you said that, but we're not fighting with Arsenal, Man City, Man United. They're going to be ahead of us. We're fighting with everyone from 4th down to, I'm going to say 8th. Because I don't really think Brentford will challenge us. So that's our batch of teams we're fighting with. And to finish top of that mini league is our aim, to finish in that 4th spot.
I would say we're fighting. Like Man United have just pulled away slightly, and I think they will probably finish 3rd. I don't think they're in the title race, but they'll finish 3rd. I think we're fighting with Tottenham, Brighton, and Liverpool. Now, it's weird me saying that because Fulham are in 6th. I do think Fulham will drop away. I think they're having a great moment and well deserve the praise that they're getting. But I think we're fighting with Tottenham, Brighton, and Liverpool for those top places.
I agree with you on that, Pete. Do you know the good thing is, obviously we've played Liverpool both times now, so obviously they're going to have some hard games coming up for themselves. And Tottenham and Brighton have both got to come to Newcastle.
Yeah.
So I think I think we are still fighting for 4th. I think that's realistically.
It's still for those reasons, Richie. It's still in our hands. Yes. After the cup final, we go to the Etihad. It's going to be a difficult game. You know, I take a point right now off the top of my head with regards to Etihad. But after that, as we've said, we've got Man United that need to come to St James's. You've got Tottenham. You've got Brighton, as you've said. You've got okay. We need to go to Brentford, and we need to go to Stamford Bridge. But in terms of those teams that we're fighting around. Our next game and our last game of the seasons against those teams, they come to us. That changes things. We get 3 points, that blows everything wide open. It's a completely different mindset that we're thinking on. But I just think, in my opinion, that Fulham will drop off. I do think they're in a purple patch right now, but I think they'll have another down patch, and that might be the reason why they finish just out of European spots.
Yeah. And if we were to finish in 4th spot, that is like a trophy win as well for us. Like it's absolutely massive of what we could do with that then going into the summer and building on that.
That's what we talked about finances with Sean tonight.
Yeah, exactly. It's all linked together. On that,
what over the course, just playing the opening league, the league section. It gets you the best part of 50, 60 million for the season. We get into the qualified, like the knockout phases. Every knockout phase off the back of that earns you an extra 10 million or so off the back of that. So you guaranteed big money off the back of that. So that's money we can spend. That's not even including the level of sponsorship. If we get Champions League football, we can add an extra 10, 20 million to any sponsorship that we get. Include most importantly, the shirt. What's on the front of the shirt? So, Fun AA apparently are going to be leaving. We can ask for another 15, 20 million off the back of that. Whoever takes on the reins, because we're playing Champions League football, and that goes into the coffers. That means more money for us to spend, more sponsors available, more sponsors around the stadium on Champions League nights. It just
exactly.
changes the dynamic.
It's a less of an excuse for the Premier League to sign off on the deal as well. So it all adds up. So that's what I mean. It mightn't actually be a trophy for finishing 4th, but it's a trophy nonetheless. Let's forget about that. But let's concentrate on our League Cup final on Sunday. That was in the questions, Richie.
It was, yeah. But there's been breaking news just in the last few minutes. I know it's happening, and it's one thing we do have to pick these sort of things up seriously, and it's just want to say, trolls. Where's that comment gone? Right there. I found it. He's in
Hey,
the
Truls. He's back as a member.
Finally. Good lad, Truls. Good lad.
Welcome, Trolls. Welcome back, Trolls.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought something was going to massive drop there, Richie, that I didn't know.
That is
Massive.
it's
I know.
Truls has been a big follower of the channel all the way
Yeah.
from the beginning. So great time
Of
as
course,
a member. And perfect timing because
the draw is on Friday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Right, lads, we leave it there. Back on Friday for away days. Catch us there, and the last show before the League Cup final. Thanks to Sean for coming on earlier. How'd you like that? Later.
Drink it.